Hey, welcome back to part 3 of the To-Do app, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and in this part 3, we'll be doing the JavaScript coding. Okay, so let's get started without wasting much time. And just for your information, keep watching until the end so that you get to have a complete To-Do app. Okay, so first and foremost, you have to add a click function to add new item to the input field. And so what do you need for that? In the HTML, you have seen the input has an ID of text and a div class of add with a button ID new. So for this add button, in order to implement well for adding new text to the input field, you have to get or grab the element with an ID of new, and to this we add the event listener with a parameter of click and function. So what will happen is when the user clicks this element, the function will implement. And what is it that we are going to implement? So inside the function, we consider a variable task. So what is going to store? It's going to store the value of the element with the ID of text. Why text? Because it's the text that we are inputting in the field. So this is the input and we will be storing the text value. So that's why this is the work that the task will be doing. So then after that, this text is going to be, remember, the text for the to-dos. So if the task is not an empty string, so that's why we are showing it as not equal to. So obviously that means if there is no scenario in which there is no task, which means there is a task, there is some task to be input, So then what do we do? So this is a conditional statement, right? So that means if task is not equal to empty, which means there is a task to be added in the input, then what we do? What is the action? Action is add the new task. Then after adding the new task, what do we need to do? We need to clear the input field, right? So that it will keep adding new tasks. So in order to clear the input field, what do? We grab the element with an ID of text and allocate its value to an empty string. Earlier, we said the task is not empty, means there is a task. Then later, what we do is we grab the element with an ID of text, that is document.getElement by ID text, dot value, and then to that value we add an empty string. That means by doing this, we clear out the input field so that in future you can add more such input texts. Okay, so this part is done. So you have done something for taking action in the input field for adding new task in the form of text. Okay, then after that you are going to do the implement the remove function. So you're going to do the code for implementing the remove. That means after adding the task, let's say you want to just remove that task. You don't want that task anymore to be sitting, the to-do task to be item to be sitting in your list anymore. So we call it the function remove item because we call it like this. You can call it any other name, but here it's for this reason to identify it as a function to remove the item that you added. So what is it here? Now we have a variable here called item. So actually parent node is actually used to identify the parent node of any element in HTML node DOM. So here this dot parent node, now this is actually supposed to indicate the current object or current item. So you by doing this code variable item this dot parent node, you can identify the item's parent as well as the parent of that parent. So for example, item is within the list and the list is within the UL. So you can identify both. Now the variable parent will be obviously the item.parent node. So when you say item.parent node, you will get the parent of item. So that will be called in this scenario as variable parent, which will be the list. Because remember, item is embedded inside the list and list is under the UL. So this is how we identify the parents accordingly, the parent and the parent's parent. Okay, then you consider execute another function which is complete item. Now complete item, why do you need? Because once you have all the to-dos, you want, like you've already, let's say, going to the movies, it's already there, you've already gone to the movies, you want to just check it out, so that you know it's a completed task, so we call it function complete item. In that, again, the same thing, you'd find the parents and the parents parent, yeah, you do the same thing, and then you also do this conditional statement. Yeah, and what is that called? This conditional statement is called ternary operator method. So when you do this ternary operator method, in a scenario where we consider a variable target, so in a scenario where you consider this condition where the parent id equals to do, that is, in this case, like if the ul's id, in our case it's going to be a ul, you can see in the HTML, if it is having ul is having an id of to do is true, in that scenario you have to execute the target variable as the element with id of ready. Otherwise, if it is not true, else return the element with an id of to do. Now basically what it means is, if the parent id is equal to do is correct, then execute the element with an id of ready, else execute an element with id of to do. So what's happening is, if you remember in the HTML, if the parent has an id of to do, you have to execute the ul node with an id of ready, that is, execute the action to either remove an item or change the status of the buttons. Yeah, if you see in the HTML, you will understand. So these two, remove button and the change buttons and the complete buttons, are inside the ul with this particular id. Yeah, and if it is false, then you have to execute the element with an id of to do, that is, execute the element, in this case execute the ul with an id of to do. Now the ul with an id of to do, what is it executing? It is executing the button, the add button. It is executing the add button to add new to do items. So one is a ul with an id of to do, which is involving the add button. Another one is the ready one, which is involving the remove and complete buttons. And if you see the HTML code, you'll understand what I'm saying. So you can sit with the HTML code in front of you that I've done in the previous part 1 in order to understand this. Now from the parent, you have to remove the child. So that's why we say dot remove child item. So from the list, if you remove the list from the ul, it will remove that item accordingly. Yeah, because the ul is the parent of the list and the item is inside the list. If you remove the list, means item is gone from the parent. So remove the child item. Okay, now we use the insert method. Now you wonder what is the insert before. Now the insert before is a method that returns the inserted child node. So in this case, target.insert before item, target.child node 0. Now this will insert a new node before an existing parent and as a child node of the target node, and 0 in these means the first item. That means here it will return the first child of the parent target node. So like for example, if you are considering the ID with to do, so it will add, let's say there are already 3 items, so it will add a new item in the first place just before the last item that was added. So this is the idea of inserting. Yeah. So then what else? So basically, if you make once you make all the to-do list, then you will understand how it works. So task 1, task 2, task 3, then again another task is added. After all this, it will insert it again before, just above the last item as the first item. So that's why this particular method is used. Yeah, so it will add new items to the to-do list. Yeah, and now you have to execute the function add new task with a parameter of 2 parameters. Yeah, so one is the add new task function that we are using, and the parameter is item. So why we are using this function, why we are executing this function? In order to add the new items to the list. So now we make the list variable. Now for this list variable, the list node, we need to create it. Yeah, so it's not document.get element, it's document.create element. So the new item, the variable list will be first thing document.get element by id to do, because that is the list with to do which will be adding the new item, if you remember. Then for the new item, you will first have to create an element with a list with id with list node. So that means you have to first create a list node in order to store the new item. Why? Because if you notice, when you are adding every new item, it is in between the open and close list. So that's why you need to create the list node. Yeah. Then new item dot inner text is the item. Like I mentioned here, the whatever inner text which is within the list node, that in the form of a text, that will be your item that is added every time you are adding. So that will be the item, and when you add the new one, it becomes the new item. Okay, so first we created the list node for storing the new item. Every time you have a new item, you have to create a list node first, because a new item is stored inside that. Then the variable new item is the text of the new item, is item that is stored between the list node. So then after that, you create the variable buttons. So for creating the variable buttons, you have to create the div element. Yeah. So create the element ID of div and store it in the variable buttons. Okay, so if you see your HTML, you'll understand where is the div happening here above the buttons. Yeah. Now, after that, what you need to do, you have to add a class of buttons to these buttons. Again in the HTML, buttons.classlist.add buttons. Inside the div, you have a buttons class, because these buttons class will be the ones that will be managing the rest of the buttons. Yeah. So our variable buttons will be document.createElementDiv. So first we created the list node, now we created the div element, and then we added the class of buttons to these buttons. Okay, now what else you need to do? So you added the new items, you added the button for that, then you added the created the list node, then you created the div element, you added the class to the div. Then after that, you need to create the remove and complete buttons and add classes. Yeah. So that part has not been done yet. So for that, let's see what is supposed to be done. You have to create a variable called remove. Now that can be remove or delete or whatever you prefer to call it. So in this case, it is variable remove. Var remove means this is for removing the items. Let's say you've created some to-do items in the list. You want to have them removed, so or deleted. So you make a variable for that. So you find that element. You have to create that element with ID of button. So document.create element button. In the HTML, there is a class of button, if you see. Why? Because this button will be specifically used every time you add an item. You need two things. One is a remove button, and the other one is the already completed button or complete button. Yeah. So here in the remove button, you will create the button for removing it. Create the element with an ID of button, and then remove that, and then add a class of remove to it, remember, because you have to identify which one is a remove button, which one is a complete button. So you add a class of remove to this after creating the button, remove button. Yeah. Okay. Now for the inner HTML, in the remove button, what are we performing? We are performing some operation. So we are performing the backticks. Yeah, the template literals, if you remember, you learned in JavaScript. And this idea is to create this operation in the string itself. So what you want to create? You want to create the trash icon, because you don't want the button to look like a button, but you want to make the remove button look like a trash icon. So you want to, in other words, create the trash icon. So for this, you perform the template literals operation with the backticks, using the backticks. As you can see here, the two backticks starts with that, and inside that you use the class of font awesome far trash. This is the standard of font awesome class, and also you do the styling within here itself inside this template literals. Styling of color equals to red in the icon tag. So what happens is the icon, the remove icon will look like a trash icon, will look like a trash can. Yeah, the remove icon will look like a trash can using the font awesome far trash, and you've already given it in this operation, you've given it a styling that is color of red. Yeah, so this is the idea of performing this operation using the backticks in the template literals. Yeah, so now you've done the remove button already in the form of a trash can. You've given it a color of red. Now the second thing what you want to perform, or what you want to do is you want to make another variable for changing the status to complete. That means you've already added the to-do items. Now you want to, if you want to change the status to, okay, this is my completed items. You can call it var completed, variable completed, or variable complete, whatever you call it. The grammar doesn't matter, haha. Okay, so for completed items, you have to also create the button element, right? Because it's a button element which is going to identify. Using that, you're going to identify whether it's completed or not. So for that, again, you do the same thing as you did for remove. Create the button element, yeah, using the ID of button, and then you add the class of complete to the button. One thing I forgot to say, you also have to add an event listener to the remove button, using the parameter click and remove item. So why? Because when the user will click on this trash can, the item will be removed. So that's the idea of adding this event listener to the remove function. Yeah, so do the same thing, perform exactly the same thing for the variable complete as you did for the remove. As you can see here, it's absolutely the same. Variable complete will be document.createElement button, because it's again the button that you're creating with a class of button. So you create the element button. What are you creating? The element button. You're creating it for using as the complete button. Yeah, and then complete.classlist.add complete. That means the class you'll be giving it, the class for this button you'll be giving it as complete. You can see it in your HTML DOM also. So you're giving it a class of complete to identify this as a completed item. So that means if you want to check an item as complete, you'll be using this button and not the remove button. So that's the idea. You're giving it another class of complete. Yeah. Okay, and then what do? You have to perform, you need that now for showing the complete icon button. What icon you need? You need the check icon, right? So in order to get the check icon, we will perform the same operation that we did for the remove button. Yeah, that is using the two backticks. In the template literals, we will perform the same operation for using the font awesome far check. Yeah, if we use this, we will get a check icon with a color of red. So you can see that happening here. I'm sorry, it's a bit slow. I should have speeded up. So if you want to watch with a better speed or more speed, it's up to you. I thought for beginners sometimes people prefer to watch slowly, but it's up to you. You can speed it up. So complete.inner HTML, perform the backticks operation, template literal. For I class will be far check and style color of red. So with this font awesome, what happens? We will get a check icon. So the button will be looking like a check icon. So that's the idea, with a color of red. Yeah. So for every to-do item, if you need to check it out, you can use this button. Whenever you feel you've completed a to-do item in your list. That's the idea of creating this button. So let's see what else is remaining. So we've made the trash icon, then we've made the check icon button, both two buttons. Okay, Now, just to announce, the next tutorial will be again the to-do app, but with different code, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, but with different code. So I'll be doing like that, couple of variations with variations in the code for especially for JavaScript and also HTML, so that you can understand different variations, and it will be a better practice for you. Okay, so until here is over. So the last thing that we did for the remove button was adding an event listener. So the same thing we go and do for the complete button. So complete, we add a event listener, that is add event listener with 2 parameters, click and complete item. When the user clicks on it, item will be checked. Then what else you need? So the remove button we got and the complete button also got. Now for every to-do item you need to show the remove button as a trash and complete button as a check icon. And in order to achieve that, you have to append the remove button as a child of buttons and complete button as a child of buttons. Remember that. That's why buttons.append child remove, buttons.append child complete. And the new item you have to append which child? The buttons. Yeah. So that means every time a new item is added, you have 2 tasks to perform, preference to perform for the user. Either you complete it, either you mark it as complete, or you mark it as remove. So that's the reason you are appending, doing the append operations here. Yeah. So append the buttons to the new item as a child. We've done that. Okay, now again the same thing, you will be also using the insert before method here. If you understand what was the insert method, I've already explained in the previous paragraph, so I hope you've noted it down. So we'll be using that couple of times here. Yeah, so let's check it out after adding it, what else is happening. And I would also suggest that you subscribe and press the bell icon so that you will get more variations of this JavaScript to-do app tutorials. Okay, so let me see movies. I'm adding a new task. Yes, it's getting added. Wow, that's done. So it's quite simple as that. Shopping, is it getting added? There you go. So as I said, it's adding it's adding on top of the previous one. I added movies first, then shopping. So shopping is coming on top. Googling will come on top. So that's what I had explained earlier, if you remember. Insert before, yeah. So this is the work of the insert. Now concert, it will be again added as a first index, yeah. So it's all getting added. Yes. So the action is being done, you're getting the required output, and as I said, list.insert before new item, list child nodes. This is, I already showed you as what is happening when you're adding in the list. Whenever I'm adding new items, it's getting added on top as the first child of the list. Like you just saw in action, as in when I'm adding the items, the one that I'm adding last comes on top of the previous one as the first item, the first child item. So this is the idea of using the insert before for the new item. Yeah. In other words, it will every time it will return the inserted child node of the list as the first item with an index of 0 below the parent new item in the list node, which you already saw in action. Okay, now what else you need? You need to add event listeners to the list with the items which is already there. Now we were showing new items being added. Now let's say there are some existing tasks this way in the list, and we want to add some event listener in order to make them vanish, I mean remove, and also change the status. Yeah. So it will complete the whole process of changing the status and removing the items which are already there. So I call it variable deleted for the items that is pre-existing. Yeah. So what's happening here? You have 2 parameters here in this event listener. One is, but before that, you need to do this loop, the for loop. So first get the elements by the class name remove, which we did above. Yeah, then you perform the for loop. So for the for loop, which we've already done in JavaScript, you consider this loop with an initial value of 0 and less than the deleted length, meaning how many ever items dot length. Yeah, if there are 10 items, so for the 10 items you perform this loop, and it will increase every time. Delete first item, delete second item, and so on until all the items that you prefer vanish. Yeah, so this is a for loop you perform first. Yeah, and then you add the event listener, the first parameter being click and remove the item and delete it for the ith index. So as explained in the for loop. Yeah, until it could be for that particular, you want to remove the 7th item, you want to remove the 6th item, so I stands for that, which number, which item. Yeah, and then to that add event listener. First parameter is click, remove item. That means when the user clicks on that remove button on the trash icon, it will remove that item based on the index. So you can choose which item you want to remove. That's the idea. It's not that when you delete everything goes. No, it will. You can selectively choose based on the index. You want to delete the 7th one, the last one, the top one, the first one, and so on. So that's the idea of doing this event listener. And similarly for the change it. So change it you're doing for changing the status. Yeah. So the same thing we do here. We grab the elements with the class name. What is that? If you remember, complete. So the complete buttons, we can change the status. So we are able to change the status and show it as whether it is completed or not completed using the check icon. Yeah, so we again perform the for loop. Why we do this for loop here is, as I mentioned earlier, for the remove items, we can selectively change the status. If we click the status, not all of them should go as done. Selectively for the ith index, whether you want to change the status for the first item or the second item or the 7th item, based on the index, you can selectively change the status as a completed item and check it out. So that's the idea of using this for loop and using the index. So now we were able to add new items as a text to the input field using the add button, and then we are also unable to delete and remove the items with the trash icon and change the status using the complete icon. Yeah, so let's see what's happening here. Let's test it out. I added item movies. Okay. Is it working? Is it adding now? Oh, no. Why it's not adding? Just now it was adding, right? Something went wrong in the code. Okay, I think there's a typo here if I am not mistaken. There was a typo. I forgot to write. I did a typo mistake in the index. I think I didn't type it. I just vaguely saw it. I forgot to change. Okay. Yeah. Now it's done. The index sign was not used appropriately. Let's see. Yes, so now it's okay. Small typo can make a mistake. I wrote the I without proper index sign. Okay, jog. So as you can see, I'm adding new task and it's adding on top of the previous ones using the insert before method. Okay, so I'm able to add. So let's check it out if you're able to. Delete and check out also. There you go. This was some pre-existing, yeah, not able to check, not able to delete the pre-existing items. So something wrong again in the code. Let's see what's happening here. So this is called debugging. I purposely didn't remove this part of the tutorial so that you'll get used to having some messy code before and completing it and then changing it. Sorry. Okay. changing it. Yeah, that was a mistake there. I typed something else instead of the index. Okay. Is it getting changed? Is it getting removed and added? Yes, movies. I can add now. Okay. I'm looking forward to do more tutorials in different variations, and I really want to do that so that you guys can practice. And I can also do a lot of practice, because as a teacher, practice for me is also important. Now I'm learning Python and doing some Python tutorials and Python projects, and it's much more fun than JavaScript. I do most of the time, I end up not doing any mistake when doing Python. Python is slowly replacing my interest. Haha. So you guys must also watch my Python tutorials. I'm doing a lot of Python projects. But I find that there are more views for my JavaScript tutorials than my Python tutorials. I guess my audience is more on the JavaScript side. Okay, cannot complain over that. And I'm so much getting used to Python that sometimes I forget semicolons in my JavaScript. Haha, that's very funny. I'm so much getting used to Python. If you miss one semicolon in JavaScript, that's it, you're done. So you sit and find out where did you forget to mention your semicolon, because I hope you know that in Python it's not required. Okay. So if any of you did not click or smash that bell icon in my channel, do remember to do that, because then it's easier to get notified of my new projects. And please guys, when I'm posting also some posts in the community tab, do make some remarks over it. Positive, negative, doubt, concern, anything, do respond. I have a community tab there and I keep posting something or the other. So I would be very grateful if you can comment over there, if you can make some comment over there, make some sound and noise over there. Yeah? Okay. So do let me know what you want me to post in the community section. You want me to post motivations or stories or questions or quizzes, whatever. You are welcome to mention that in the comment section below. Yeah. I think I have forgotten to write a line of code in my remove function. So I'm just going over it again. And I'm sorry if my screen is small, because since I'm using an app, I'm using the JSitter app, the mobile app, to do this code. And you might find the screen size a bit smaller because I am debugging vertically below, but you're not able to see it. So I'm sorry for that. I'll change my screen size. If you don't like this screen size, if you prefer the taller one, do let me know. That is a 4:5 size. If you prefer that over this size, 16:9, do let me know also in the comment section, because I will definitely make the size that my audience prefers. Okay, I think the speed is really slow. But what I'm doing is I'm going through over the code from the beginning, right from the end till the beginning, and from the beginning until the end, line by line, and seeing what happened wrong, some typo or something missing. So that's what I'm trying to do. And then I'll let you know what I changed, even if it doesn't show up on this small screen. I promise to tell you what was a mistake, like I always do, because that's how you can actually kind of improve your coding. So I just tried hiding the last part and doing it. No, but it's still not going to work. But let me check it out. Now, let me add a new item, music concert. Yeah. Now, oh, how can it work when I removed the delete it function and the variable? No, it's not going to work. So let me add it back. And it can be sometimes very frustrating when you know you've done everything right and it's still not working and you cannot figure out what went wrong. So this is the part of the debugging chores. Debugging can be sometimes very irritating, but it's a good lesson and it's good practice to understand your code so that you don't do the same mistake again. Usually it's typo errors, but in a small screen it's quite possible that you do a lot of typo. So I added a new item, concert. Yes, I can check it out. Okay, now I can check it out, but I cannot delete it. So that means where something went wrong in either in the variable delete or in the delete or remove function, obviously, because now if you can do the complete status but you cannot do the delete performance, then something is wrong with the variables or code to do with delete and remove. So I'm checking out those variables. Yeah. And if you have any suggestions, you do let me know in terms of the audio or the video or the code. You can let me know in the comment section. Yeah. And do mention your opinions, whatever positive or negative. I'm all okay for it. Okay. And I'm really excited to do 3 more variations of the JavaScript to do app. 3 more. And then after that, I'll be also doing another variation in React before doing some other projects. So to do app is the most wonderful app that you can do, a project that you can do in order to understand JavaScript and React. And the best part is JavaScript code you can do in different styles. HTML you can do in different variations. So JavaScript, HTML and CSS, all you can do in different variations. So that's what I mean to do for the next few weeks. The to-do app itself with different variations. And I really want you to watch those tutorials as well. So let's see if I'm able to delete. I can do the change status, delete not yet. Okay, status, yes, I am able to check it out, but delete not yet. So something went wrong with the delete function. So let's go back to the top. Why I'm doing this and not editing it from my tutorial, there's a reason for it. I wanted you, actually when I did this, I did the same mistake while preparing the tutorial. But had I wanted, I could have just edited it out, but I didn't do it because I purposely didn't do, so that you guys who are watching will also go through the same stage, anxiety stage, and try to figure out why it's not happening. And then you can relate yourself to this debugging experience. So, and then it's very important that you go through this frustrating stage, because then you'll not make the same mistake again. So I made this mistake while doing the tutorial, and that's the reason trust me, I didn't edit it out, because then it's fancy. It's not showing you the pain of coding, and I want to share with you the pain of coding. Sometimes it can be very painful when you make a small mistake unknowingly, subconsciously or unconsciously. I mean, without knowing that you've made a mistake. Yeah, sometimes it's very possible when there are large pieces of code, especially when you do a long project or a long tutorial, like in my case, and a long code. I did all that in one sitting. So when I did that, I made a mistake. I know the mistake where it is as of now when I'm talking, but I am purposely, while doing this tutorial, I'm purposely retaining it in my tutorial so that I can point out where I made the mistake. Like you can see here, this is the function to do with the function which is dealing with the remove. Yeah, there you go. So what is it missing over here? If you notice, what did I forget to mention here? Yeah, function remove item. There's something missing here, right? I got the parent node of the parent node. I got to know the list node. I got to know the UL node. I got to know the item. Yeah, I got to know the items parent, which is the list, and then the list parent, which is a UL. But isn't there something missing over here? Yes. Guess what? What did I forget to mention here? I forgot to mention that the parent is there. Yeah, the parent is the items parent. Did I mention how to remove the child item? No. I mentioned the child as an item. I mentioned the parent. But did I mention how to remove the strike of the item? No. There you go. So, from the parent, you have to remove the child, right? Then only the item will be removed. So, parent.remove child item. So, that means from the UL is a parent of the list. If you remove the child, which is the item, either you can consider as removing the list item to remove the child. There you go.